I'm talking about what you eat right before you run. It allows you to use all of the muscles of your foot, not just to keep you stable, but to make you more powerful. Same pace extended over time, you will beat everybody in front of you. They'll just start dropping off like flies. You have more time training, so more aerobic development, and you can up your miles without getting hurt. Over a decade, this is gonna accrue. So again, being long-term in your running, not short-term. I wish that I knew this. Hey, Andrew here with Run Elite. Now, whether you're a beginning runner or a veteran runner, there's always things that you can learn, isn't there? There's always ways that you can get better. And sometimes we take on beliefs or habits in our training that don't serve us, but we think they do, so we keep doing them year after year, decade after decade. And what I'm here to share with you are 5 things that I wish I knew going back. So, let's take a journey together. Let's go! All right, tip number 1 is what you eat before you run really matters. Now, diet is a complex topic, and I'm not here to talk about lifestyle diet. I'm talking about what you eat right before you run. Now, I've experimented with everything. Back in high school, I used to get these horrible side stitches right here. Anytime that I ran, they were debilitating. And what I did was I stopped eating 4 hours before I ran in order to empty things out of my stomach. Well, I've come a long way from there, and I can get to the point where I can eat while I'm running quite a bit, and I don't get side stitches anymore. So there's a couple of things that I've found really help when you're doing a run or a workout in the morning. And the first one is that when you wake up, you may consider not eating anything before you start your run. In this way, you're not really turning on your digestion, which uses up a lot of energy. You're not really gonna have much mass in your stomach that could give you a side stitch, and you're not gonna get refluxy, and you're not gonna have these problems that can happen from eating anything. But if you're gonna do not just an easy run, but you're gonna do a workout or a long run, or if you're gonna run a race, then you have to eat before your run in order to maximize your performance. So on a workout day, here's what I suggest for you. I suggest that you start your day right when you wake up with lemon water. And lemon water does a couple of things. First of all, it hydrates you. You're getting some nice water in. I drink a big jug of this most mornings, and I squeeze half a lemon into it. And the lemon, what that's gonna do is help alkalize your body. Now, alkalinity, it's the opposite of acidity. So if you have foods that cause an acidic environment in your body, that's gonna impede your running. Because really, your muscles can go and go and go until they're in an acidic environment. And this is where hydrogen ions or lactate starts to build up and the muscles can't contract anymore. So we wanna give ourselves a fighting chance and not have acid in our diet. And things that cause acid are oil and animal proteins and potentially coffee. But I want you to consider just having things that are light, that are hydrating. Wait. Let's pause right here because I want to take a minute to bring you into the kitchen. It's where champions are made, really. And it's where we get to get yourself a nice hot cup of coffee. Can you smell that? I bet you can. Okay, I have to be honest with you here that coffee probably isn't the best thing for your performance. And the reason actually isn't the coffee, it's the combination of the caffeine inside of coffee actually inhibits your arteries in a certain way. Now, I know that I'm gonna sound like a hippie granola when I say this, but you can actually have some coffee alternatives that are delicious. What I do is I have a beet latte. That's right, beets in the morning. Get some milk of some sort. I use almond milk, I use oat milk. You wanna get this oil-free if you can. Most of the milks, they really do have a lot of oil. Then you're gonna wanna take some beet powder. I use like, half a teaspoon. And then I use some goji powder. Now, I'm not a fan of powdered things, but compared with having a coffee, having powdered beets, it's like the lesser evil, And look at that. I'm gonna just let that heat for a minute while I talk with you here. Now, in short, when you have coffee with caffeine, it's going to inhibit your nitric oxide in your blood. Basically, inside of your arteries, you have these endothelial cells that go around the outside of the artery, and they manufacture nitric oxide, which is really important for so many things, but one of the chief things that it does is it allows your blood vessels to dilate. Now, when you have nitric oxide, you can dilate the blood vessels to your muscles and you can run really well and you can recover really well. Now, when you have coffee with caffeine, it paralyzes the arteries, as does oil. When you paralyze the arteries, you can't get blood to the muscles nearly as well, and you're not gonna recover nearly as well. So maybe have your coffee if you want, but before a workout, I want you to at least consider having some greens or having some beets, both of which are gonna improve your nitric oxide quite a bit. If you wanna learn more information on these, then we have future videos coming for you. Once they're out, we'll link them in the description below. You're gonna wanna look on the Running Elite channel for nitric oxide and for our current video that we have all ready for you on beets, and you can find that right here. Back to the video. And let's dive into food now. So I suggest you start with that lemon water, but when we get into what you're gonna eat, I do suggest that you eat just raw fruit before you run. If you start eating cooked foods or heavy foods or high protein foods or high fat foods, it's gonna sit in your stomach, and the metabolic cost to just digest those is very high. It's gonna take away your energy. But if you have high water content fruit, instead of digesting it, it's gonna be more of absorbing it. And it hydrates you, and it gives you antioxidants, and it's alkalizing. So you're gonna perform much better. I found this with myself. Even just 2 weeks ago, I did a tempo run and I was eating it hard just 2 miles into it. And I had to stop and kind of catch my breath and sit down and then run home. And the reason was that I hadn't eaten properly before. Compare that with just 2 days ago, I did an interval run that was at a much faster pace, and I felt like I could go and go and go forever. What did I have for breakfast? Well, lemon water in hibiscus tea, and then I had about 6 or 7 oranges. I let it settle for about an hour, and I did my workout, and I killed it. This is what I do for races too. So that's trick number 1. Number 2 is that you want to have a shoe that is 0 drop. Now, you've probably heard things about shoes being 0 drop. What does that really mean? It just means that the heel and the toe are on the same plane. Like when you're barefoot, your heel and your toe on the floor, it's the same plane, right? But a lot of shoes, traditionally, the heel is up like this. What that does is a number of things. It makes it harder for you to land on your midfoot when you're running, because your heel will just touch the ground sooner than it otherwise would. And also, by having all that extra cushion under the heel, it allows you to just jam your heels into the ground when you're tired, because you can. It doesn't hurt. If you were barefoot, you wouldn't land on your heels. It would just hurt. So getting into a shoe like Ultra, I'm a big fan of Ultra. This is not sponsored by Ultra. I just like them. By being in a 0 drop shoe, you allow yourself to land on your midfoot as opposed to your heel. And that's gonna take your stride and pull it up underneath your body just a little bit, which helps you land under your center of mass and conserve your momentum going forward. So there's lots of brands. You don't have to get Ultra. You could get Topo, you can get Lems, some New Balance are 0 drop. And you want to be a little bit careful, because if you're used to a 12 millimeter drop and you get into a 0, you might hurt your Achilles or your calf or your plantar fascia. So you need to work your way down into 0 drop and do it slowly. I actually broke my ankle about 12 years ago going from a traditional shoe to a 0 drop like that. And I thought it was gonna be this magic pill. Broke my ankle. Took me a long time to get better. So do it gradually. Set a goal for yourself that this may take a year or even 2 years to full-time get into 0 drop, but you wanna start moving in that direction. Get yourself a pair of 0 drop shoes and just start incorporating them into your gym workouts or even when you're walking. Now, when you're in a 0 drop shoe, you also have the opportunity to get a foot-shaped toe box. So really, trick number 2 is gonna be not just 0 drop, but a shoe that just allows your foot to work in the way that it was intended. Now, this actually looks like your foot. A lot of traditional shoes, they come to a taper and they look cool, they look more stylish, but it's not how your foot is shaped. So you need to let your toes, your metatarsals, these bones kind of in here, to splay out. It gives you inherent stability when you're on the ground, and it allows you to use the muscles, all of the muscles of your foot, not just to keep you stable, but to make you more powerful and a better runner as well. So that's trick number 2. Number 3 is the 10% rule. Now, the 10% rule is something that is really meant to keep you from doing too much running. How many of you have heard about the 10% rule, meaning that whatever your mileage is this week, next week it's okay to run more, just 10% more. And then the next week you can run 10% more. And the next week you can run 10% more. But the problem with this is that it's way too fast. For 1 week, it's not that big of a deal, but this compounds over time. And by the time that you've been doing an 18-week training program, and many marathon plans are 18-week programs, you're at 152 miles per week. It is far too much to go from 30 to 100, over 150 in just one training cycle. So even if you were to cut it down every 4th week, like a lot of runners do, you hear increase, 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 and then take a recovery week, and then do it again, and then take a recovery week. The problem here is that by needing that recovery week, you're admitting that you've been overtraining. I've been overtraining, so I don't want to get hurt. Let's cut it back. And then let's overtrain again, and then cut it back again. Your plan is to just overtrain yourself and hope that you don't blow up. A better plan would be to take a longer term approach. Here's 3 things you can do. You can go up very slowly, or you can jump up your mileage and then stay there for a long time. I have a lot of my runners do this. I have a lot of them jump from say 40 to 50 miles per week, but then keep it there for their entire like 2 or 3 or 4 or even more, 6 months, some of my runners. And you can change other training metrics, but your mileage, it will be a big step up, but then if you do only that and keep it there, you will adapt over time and you won't get hurt. The third way that you can increase your mileage is you can jump your mileage up to basically whatever it is you want if you take your pace and you slow it way down. I've done this myself. I run anywhere from 50 to 70 miles per week, and a lot of time I'm running like 30 miles per week, and it kind of varies depending on where I am in my season. But then I'll run 100 or even 200 or even 250 sometimes miles in a week, and that'll include a long race normally. But I can jump up there and I don't get injured because I'll run very slow. You can do a big level up with your mileage if you run really slow, because injuries happen not necessarily by how much you're running, but the impact that you get from running. So if you keep your stride length the same and you double your mileage, well, you just doubled the impact on your body. But instead, if you double your mileage, but you run 3 minutes per mile slower and you do it on the trail and you do it with a midfoot strike, well, now you don't have nearly as much impact on your body. You have more time training, so more aerobic development, and you can up your miles without getting hurt. Number 4 is your pacing tactic during your race matters so much that it might at sometimes even matter more than your training. Now imagine this, you train for 3 months or 6 months for this race that you really care about, and you might run faster, you might run a PR, but you still ran a positive split. You still didn't pace it ideally. And I'm telling you that you could have trained about the same as you did the season before, but improve your pacing and run as fast or even faster. Now, when you combine ideal training with ideal pacing, that's when you can really kill it. But the pacing matters so much, and I see runners out busting it out at the track and doing lung bursting interval sessions and training really hard, and then on race day, they mess it up. So let me tell you a couple of stories here. I had this runner whose name was Trevor, and he was in the Army where they do a 2-mile PT test. Now he was running about 1640 at the time, and he wanted to get down to mid-13s. Well, that was a pretty big jump, and he'd been trying for a long time. So we did work on his fitness, and we got him building through the triphasic model. He did get more fit, but we had him take off almost 3 minutes in just about 2 months in his 2-mile. And how did we do it? Well, we changed his pacing. Now, when the gun would go off, they'd all kind of go out hard and stick together. You know how it goes. Some people fade and some people get ahead. This is how most races look, especially at a novice level. But if you watch elite runners run, or even at the Olympics, oftentimes the first mile of a 5K in the Olympics is very slow. Sometimes they go really slow through even 2 miles. Think of Prefontaine's race in the 70s, right? Have you seen that movie, Without Limits or Prefontaine? They go through the first 2 miles at a pedestrian pace, right? And then a 4-minute mile to close it out. That's how elites run, and the pacing really matters. So with Trevor, all we did was we got him to run an even pace. I said, Trevor, when you go to your next PT test, you're gonna be in dead last on the first lap. You're gonna be in dead last on the second and third lap. It's 8 laps, right? But then what's gonna happen is around the 5th or the 6th lap, you're gonna start picking off people so quickly. And the goal here is that you're actually gonna win this race. And it's not gonna happen until 1 or 2 laps to go. And this is exactly what happened. He was in dead last place. Everybody's getting ahead of him. And then a little over halfway through, he started catching people and he won, and he took 3 minutes off of his time. Was he more fit? Yes. Did he pace it much better? Hell yes. And it takes a blow to your ego, right? In order to be losing a race, in order to be further back in the pack than you know you could be early on, we don't like that. We want to be up there with the fast runners because that's who we are, right? I'm a fast runner, I should be up there. But hold yourself back. And this works from the 2 mile all the way up to the my longest run ever, 205 miles at the Tahoe 200 here. There was a guy I was running with on day one, and we were all the way kind of in the back. We were taking it really easy. He ended up finishing in 5th place. 24 hours in, he was in the back of the pack. At the end, 5th place. He started slow, and he finished not even faster. He just finished the same pace, just as Trevor did. Same pace, extended over time. You will beat everybody in front of you. They'll just start dropping off like flies. So pacing really matters. And number 5 here is what Frank Shorter told me. I met Frank Shorter at the Boston Marathon. There he is, he's right there. Frank Shorter at the Boston Marathon 15 or 20 years ago. And he was signing autographs and he wrote to me, consistency is the key, intervals help too. And I still have it in my running room. My laundry room is kind of my running room. I still have it there to this day, and it reminds me, consistency is key. I wish that I knew this when I was in high school, in college, even in my 20s, even in my early 30s. Because don't we often sign up for a race and train better and better and better because we have that race on the calendar, and then the race is over, the big race, the marathon, and we take some time to recover. And then we lose some of our fitness. And we don't have another race on the calendar for a while, and so we lose a little bit more fitness, and we'll run a little bit, but we're not as good as we were leading up to that race. Then we get another race coming, and we ramp it up, and we kind of do this in these cycles. Now, there is something to be said for having a training season where you peak and then you recover, but you want to be consistent, meaning that your mileage is pretty consistent throughout the year. Your frequency of running, how many days per week or how many workouts per week you do, is pretty consistent, unless you're planning to take some time off, which is totally cool. But when you're training, you want to keep those things pretty consistent. Whether they're high or they're low, it's better to have a moderately high consistency and mileage that you just do all the time, and that you can peak by putting certain workouts in, rather than to let your training go and then try to do everything leading up to a race. I'm going to run more days per week, more mileage and faster, and I'm going to do intervals, and I'm going to do marathon pace running, and that's only going to bring you so far. Frank Shorter, the same guy, back in the 70s, he would run 20 miles every Sunday. It doesn't matter if the Olympics are coming up or if it's in the winter and it's the off season. 20 miles every Sunday, no matter what, like clockwork. Now, do you think that when Frank got to the point where he's tuning up for the Olympics here, where he won the gold medal, that those years and years and years of 20 miles every Sunday, consistency, that now it's pretty easy for him to do high quality long runs and kind of ramp up his fitness pretty easily with no risk of injury? Where's the injury risk? He's used to running 140, 160, even more miles per week. When he goes to train for his peak race, he might actually decrease his mileage in order to increase the quality. His injury risk is going to go down because of consistency. So consistently eat well, consistently sleep well, consistently run long runs, whatever it is. And consistent doesn't have to mean all the time, it just means consistent. Maybe you do a long run only once per month, but every month. And over a decade, this is going to accrue. So again, being long-term in your running, not short-term. I hope that you found even one of these things useful for you. And I encourage you not to focus as much on ramping up your mileage and training hard, but to do the things that are really going to help you move the needle in the long term. Because being short-sighted is the biggest mistake that we can make. That's where you get injured. And it's not fulfilling long-term, is it? We really want to be able to become a better runner over the years as you get older, because you're not going to become a great marathoner in a year. Even if you were a great track runner. We see guys like Eliud Kipchoge, who was an outstanding track runner, world class. And even him, when he moved up to the marathon, it took him years before he was setting world records and before he's the great runner that we know him as today in the marathon. So take your time, enjoy this, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.